The pasta carbonara sat cooling on my dining room table while Dad stood by the window, gesturing at my spare bedrooms like a real estate agent showing a property. Mom scrolled through her phone reviewing moving company quotes. My sister Chelsea sat beside her husband Brad, both of them grinning like they'd won the lottery. I set down my fork carefully and waited. "This place is wasted on just you," Dad continued, walking through my 3-bedroom apartment like he owned it. "What do you need 3 bedrooms for? You work from home, you're single, no kids. Meanwhile, your mother and I are cramped in that retirement community, and Chelsea and Brad are paying ridiculous rent across town. The spare rooms," Mom added without looking up, "are just sitting empty. It's selfish really when family needs space." Chelsea nodded enthusiastically. "We calculated it out. Brad and I take the master bedroom, it's bigger anyway and we need the closet space. You can have the smallest bedroom. Mom and Dad get the middle one. We'll share the common areas." "Share," I repeated quietly. "Obviously we'll need to make some changes," Brad said, already measuring the walls with his eyes. "This minimalist thing you have going is depressing. We'll bring some real furniture, some color. Make it feel like a home." Dad turned from the window, his expression magnanimous. "We're not trying to impose, sweetie. We're just being practical. You have space you're not using. We're family. Family shares." "When are you planning this move?" I asked. "Tomorrow," Mom said brightly, finally looking up from her phone. "I've already booked the movers for 9 a.m. Chelsea and Brad's lease ends this week, so the timing is perfect. Your father and I can be out of the retirement place by month's end. We're month to month anyway." "Tomorrow," I echoed. "Don't worry about preparing anything," Chelsea said, waving dismissively. "We'll handle the logistics. You just need to clear out 2 of the bedrooms tonight. Shouldn't take long, you barely have anything in them anyway." I took a sip of water, considering my response. Through the window behind Dad, I could see the security checkpoint at the building's entrance, the guards he'd walked past without really noticing. "Have any of you asked where I live?" I said. They looked at each other, confused by the question. "What do you mean?" Dad asked. "You live here. We're sitting in your apartment. But do you know where here is? The specific location, the building, the district." Mom frowned. "The Fairmont building, obviously. We've been here a dozen times." "The Fairmont Residences," I clarified. "On Embassy Row. Specifically, in the international district designated for diplomatic personnel." Silence. "So," Brad said uncertainly, "it's a nice neighborhood. That's why we want to move in." I pulled out my phone and opened my housing agreement. "So this building isn't standard residential property. It's classified as protected diplomatic housing, managed by the International Relations Bureau. Every resident requires security clearance and official authorization." Dad laughed nervously. "Sweetie, you're not a diplomat. You work in tech doing whatever it is you do with computers." "I'm a senior cybersecurity analyst for the State Department," I said calmly. "I've held that position for 6 years. My clearance level is TS/SCI, top secret/sensitive compartmented information. This apartment is provided as part of my government housing package." The laughter died. "Government housing?" Mom's voice came out weak. "Diplomatic housing," I corrected. "Reserved for State Department personnel, Foreign Service officers, and approved international staff. This entire building requires security badges for entry. The lobby has armed guards. Every visitor is logged and verified." Chelsea had gone pale. "But we've visited before." "As my pre-approved guests," I said. "Registered 48 hours in advance, background checked and escorted by me at all times. You've never been here alone. You've never had building access. And you've certainly never been authorized to live here." Brad was scrolling through his phone frantically, probably looking up the building's security protocols. His face grew whiter with each search result. "This is ridiculous," Dad said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "You're saying we can't stay with our own daughter because of some bureaucratic nonsense?" "I'm saying you can't move into protected diplomatic housing without federal authorization, comprehensive background checks, and security clearance that takes months to obtain," I replied. "Even if I wanted you here, which I don't since you didn't ask, you legally cannot reside in this building." Mom set down her phone with shaking hands. "You could have mentioned this before we booked movers." You could have asked before booking movers, I countered. You announced you were moving in tomorrow. You measured my walls. You assigned bedrooms. You called my home family property. At no point did you ask if this was even possible. But family, Chelsea started. Family doesn't supersede federal security protocols, I interrupted. This building is protected by the same regulations that cover embassy property. Unauthorized residents aren't just asked to leave, they're arrested for trespassing on secured government property. The apartment suddenly felt very quiet. What happens tomorrow? Mom asked in a small voice. When the movers arrive? They'll be stopped at the outer security perimeter, I said. The building manager will check the authorization list, find no approval for moving additional residents into Unit 7C and deny entry. If they try to proceed anyway, building security will contact federal law enforcement. Brad had found something on his phone. It says here unauthorized entry into diplomatic housing can result in federal charges. Up to 5 years in prison. That seems extreme for family, Dad said weakly. It's not extreme for violating secured federal property, I said. This building houses State Department analysts, Foreign Service officers preparing for overseas assignments, and occasionally foreign diplomats under protection programs. Security isn't a suggestion. It's law. Chelsea was crying now, mascara running. We gave notice on our apartment. We have nowhere to go. You gave notice without confirming you had somewhere to go, I said, not without sympathy but without backing down. That was your choice. We're your parents, Dad said, playing his final card. You'd really let us be homeless rather than help us navigate some red tape? There is no red tape to navigate, I said firmly. You cannot live here. Period. This isn't my personal property that I'm selfishly hoarding. This is government housing with federal security requirements. I don't have the authority to move you in even if I wanted to. Then where are we supposed to go? Mom's voice cracked. Back to your retirement community on month to month, I suggested. Chelsea and Brad can extend their lease or find a new rental. These are the same options you had before you decided my spare rooms were family property. But you have so much space, Chelsea protested. 3 bedrooms for one person. It's not fair. I have 3 bedrooms because my position requires a home office for classified work and a secure storage room for encrypted equipment, I explained. Both are locked rooms you've never seen because they're off-limits to non-cleared personnel. The only spare room is my actual bedroom. My phone buzzed. A text from building security. Miss Chen, we have your family registered for a dinner visit until 8 p.m. Confirming they're departing on schedule. I showed them the message. Security tracks every visitor. Your authorized visit ends in 20 minutes. After that you'll be asked to leave. Asked. Brad said hopefully. Escorted, I corrected. By armed guards if necessary. The next morning at 8:47 a.m., my phone exploded with texts. Dad, the movers showed up anyway. They're saying they can't access the building. Mom, security won't let them in. This is humiliating. There are other residents watching. Chelsea, please come down and tell security it's okay. We have all our stuff in the truck. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I watched from my 7th floor window as the scene unfolded below. A large moving truck idled outside the security perimeter. My family stood beside it, gesturing frantically at the security checkpoint. 2 armed guards remained unmoved, checking their tablets, shaking their heads. Another text from Chelsea. They're saying we need federal authorization. Natalie, please. Our stuff is in this truck. We're literally homeless. I called building security. This is Natalie Chen, Unit 7C. I understand there's a situation with an unauthorized moving truck. Yes, Ms. Chen. Your family members are insisting they have permission to move into your unit. We've explained the authorization requirements. They're becoming agitated. They have no authorization, I confirmed. They were informed yesterday that this building doesn't permit unauthorized residents. Please proceed with standard protocol. Understood. We'll require them to vacate the premises. I hung up and watched as a 3rd security officer approached my family. The conversation was brief. Dad's gestures became more animated. The security officer spoke into his radio. Within minutes, 2 more guards arrived. The message was clear. Leave now or be removed. The doorbell to my apartment rang suddenly, making me jump. I checked the security monitor. It was Building Management Director Patricia Morrison. I opened the door. Ms. Morrison. Miss Chin, she said professionally, holding a tablet. I apologize for the disturbance this morning. Your family members attempted to gain unauthorized access with a moving vehicle. Security stopped them at the perimeter as protocol requires. I'm aware, I said. They were informed yesterday this building has federal security requirements. They claimed you'd given them permission to move in, Patricia continued. One of them, your father I believe, became verbally aggressive with security staff. He threatened to call his lawyer and accused us of harassment. I closed my eyes briefly. I apologize for his behavior. You're not responsible for their actions, Patricia said firmly. However, I need to file an official incident report. Any attempted breach of diplomatic housing security is logged with the State Department. I need your statement confirming they had no authorization. They had no authorization, I confirmed. They announced yesterday they were moving in today. I explained the security requirements and that it was impossible. They chose not to believe me. Patricia made notes on her tablet. Were you under any duress when they made this announcement? Any coercion or pressure? They assumed I'd comply, I said carefully. They booked movers without my consent, assigned themselves bedrooms in my apartment, and called my home family property. But no direct threats. Understood. More notes. For the record, Ms. Chin, even if you'd wanted to authorize long-term guests, the process requires forms submitted 6 weeks in advance, full background checks and written justification from your department head. The timeline is typically 8 to 12 weeks. Their plan was impossible from the start. I explained that to them. Clearly they didn't listen. Patricia looked up from her tablet. The moving truck has been escorted off the premises. Your family members left in a private vehicle. Building security has flagged their names. Any future visit attempts will require your direct approval and escort from the lobby. That's appropriate, I said. One more thing, Patricia added, her expression softening slightly. I've been managing diplomatic housing for 15 years. Family incidents like this happen more often than you'd think. People assume federal security is negotiable when it comes to family. It's not. You did everything correctly, Ms. Chin. Don't let them make you feel guilty for following protocol. After she left, I returned to the window. The moving truck was gone. My family was gone. The security checkpoint had returned to normal operations. My phone was still buzzing with messages. Chelsea, they made us leave. Our stuff is in the truck. Where are we supposed to go? Dad, this is absurd. We're filing a complaint. You can't treat family this way. Mom, please call us. We need to figure this out. Brad, we're storing everything in a facility. It's costing $400. You owe us. I turned off my phone. 3 days later, I received an email from the State Department's Housing Authority. Subject line: Unauthorized access attempt, security report filed. The email detailed the incident. Family members attempting to move into secured diplomatic housing without clearance, claiming resident permission despite lacking proper authorization. Security had filed an official report. Was I experiencing any coercion or pressure from family members? Did I need additional security measures? I responded, no coercion. Family members made unauthorized plans without my knowledge or consent. Situation has been resolved. No additional security measures needed at this time. The response came within an hour. Understood. Your file has been noted. For future reference, any authorized long-term guests require advance approval as outlined in your housing agreement. Thank you for maintaining security protocols. I sat back in my home office, the room Chelsea had wanted to turn into Brad's gaming space. The room where I conducted classified briefings and managed encrypted State Department communications. The room my family had called wasted space. My phone powered back on, immediately flooding with messages I'd missed over 3 days. 17 texts from Mom. 23 from Chelsea. 9 from Dad. 4 from Brad, each demanding money for various moving-related expenses. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened my housing agreement and read through the security protocols again. The federal regulations that protected this building. The clearance requirements that made it impossible for unauthorized residents. The legal consequences for attempting to breach diplomatic housing security. Everything was there, clearly documented, legally binding. My family had tried to claim my home as family property. Federal law had other ideas. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived via building mail system. Inside, a handwritten letter from Dad. Natalie, your mother and I have returned to our retirement apartment. Chelsea and Brad found a new rental, though they're struggling with the increased costs after breaking their previous lease. We're disappointed in how you handled this situation. Family should come first, but you chose government regulations over helping your own parents and sister. We thought we raised you to value family loyalty. Clearly we were wrong. When you're ready to apologize and make this right, we'll be waiting. Dad. I read it once, then fed it through my shredder. No apology would be coming. No guilt would be accepted. They tried to take over my home without asking, ignored federal law when it was explained, and now wanted me to apologize for enforcing boundaries they'd refused to respect. The shredded paper fell into the bin like confetti. Outside my window, the security checkpoint stood guard. Inside my apartment, 3 bedrooms remained exactly as they should be. Mine secured, protected by federal law. My family had called it wasted space. The State Department called it diplomatic housing. I called it home. And the authorization documents, the ones my family had never bothered to obtain, the ones that would have taken 12 weeks minimum to process, the ones that made their move-in tomorrow plan legally impossible from the start. Those documents told the real truth. This wasn't family property. It was protected federal housing. And no amount of entitlement could override that. The security protocols were clear. The legal boundaries were enforced. And my home remained mine. Exactly as it should be.
The late afternoon sun glinted off my Rolls Royce as I sat in my parents' driveway, staring at the house I'd grown up in. The once pristine Victorian mansion looked tired now. Paint peeling, gutters sagging, the carefully manicured lawn I remembered overgrown and patchy. It was a perfect metaphor for my family's fall from grace. My mother's desperate phone call yesterday had caught me off guard. 7 years of silence, broken by tears and pleas for help. The house was in foreclosure. They needed $400,000, and they had nowhere else to turn. Please, Lily, she had sobbed. I know we haven't been there for you, but we're your parents. We need you. My name is Lily Chen, and at 35, I was about to show my family exactly what their disappointment of a daughter had become. The last time I'd seen them, I was 28, and they were cutting me off completely, financially, emotionally, completely, because I'd refused to take over the family's failing import business. You're throwing away everything we built for you, my father had shouted that day. All our sacrifices, all our plans, worthless. What they didn't know was that I'd already been building something of my own. While they were pushing me to follow their path, I'd been quietly developing a revolutionary AI algorithm. The day they disowned me, I had already secured my first round of venture capital funding. Now, 7 years later, my tech company, Neural Dynamics, was worth billions. I kept my success quiet, staying out of the press, letting others be the public face of the company while I focused on innovation. My parents, caught up in their own drama, had never bothered to look into what had become of their disappointing daughter. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car. The click of my Louboutins against the cracked concrete walkway seemed to echo in a quiet neighborhood. Before I could reach the door, it flew open. Lily, my mother exclaimed, her eyes widening at my appearance. The daughter she'd last seen in jeans and a hoodie now stood before her in a tailored Channel suit, wearing jewelry that cost more than their mortgage. Hello, Mother, I said calmly. May I come in? She stepped aside, flustering with her hands like she always did when nervous. Of course. Your father's in the living room. We weren't expecting you so early. I followed her through the foyer, noting how the once elegant house had fallen into disrepair. The antique furniture was dusty. The Persian rugs threadbare. The pride of the Chin family had clearly seen better days. My father sat in his favorite leather armchair, looking older and smaller than I remembered. His eyes narrowed as he took in my appearance. You look expensive, he said, his tone a mix of confusion and suspicion. Things have changed, Father, I replied, sitting down across from him. But then that's why I'm here, isn't it? Things have changed for you too. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa, wringing her hands. Lily, we're so grateful you came. We didn't know who else to turn to. The bank is foreclosing, I finished for her. Yes, you mentioned that. Along with the fact that you need $400,000 to save the house. What I'd like to know is how you got here. My father's face darkened. The business had some setbacks. The market changed, suppliers became unreliable. We had to take out loans to keep things afloat. I nodded slowly. The import business I refused to take over. The one you said I was foolish to walk away from. That business. Lily, my mother interrupted, clearly trying to prevent an argument. Please, we know we hurt you. We said terrible things. But we're your parents and we need help. I studied them both, my proud father, now unable to meet my eyes, and my mother, still trying to manage everyone's emotions. They looked tired, defeated. Part of me wanted to tell them everything right then. About my success, my company, the fortune I built. But another part, the part that remembered years of criticism and control, wanted them to understand exactly what they'd thrown away. Show me the paperwork, I said finally. Everything, the loans, the business records, all of it. If I'm going to help, I need to know what I'm dealing with. My father started to protest, but my mother quickly gathered a stack of documents from a drawer. As I reviewed them, the full picture emerged. The business had been failing for years, long before they pressured me to take it over. They'd mortgaged the house multiple times, taken out high-interest loans, and now everything was coming due. You're not just in trouble with the house, I said, looking up from the papers. The business is completely underwater. You need a lot more than $400,000 to fix this. We just need to save the house, my mother said quickly. The business, we can figure that out later. I set the papers down and leaned back, studying them. Why did you really call me? After 7 years of silence, why now? My father shifted uncomfortably. We heard rumors about your company. Someone mentioned you were doing well in tech. You thought I might have enough money to bail you out, I finished. But you didn't bother to actually find out what I've been doing all these years, did you? We were angry, my mother admitted softly. When you left, when you rejected everything we planned for you, it felt like betrayal. We were too proud to reach out, to see what you'd made of yourself. I stood up, walking to the window. The garden where I'd spent countless hours as a child was overgrown now. The roses my mother had once tenderly cared for choked by weeds. Do you know what neural dynamics is? I asked, not turning around. Some sort of computer company, my father ventured. I couldn't help but laugh. Some sort of computer company. Yes, I suppose that's one way to put it. I turned to face them. Neural Dynamics is one of the fastest growing AI companies in the world. Our technology is revolutionizing everything from healthcare to climate science, and I founded it. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stared at me, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. That's impossible, my father finally stammered. You never had that kind of business experience. I had something better. I cut in. I had vision. I saw where technology was going while you were clinging to an outdated business model. The daughter you dismissed as a disappointment built something worth billions. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Billions? Yes, I said simply. Which is why your request for $400,000 is actually quite modest. The question is, what are you really asking for? Money? Or something else? They looked at each other, decades of shared history passing between them in a glance. My father's shoulders slumped, and for the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes. We were wrong, he said, his voice rough with emotion. About everything. The business, your choices, you. We were so convinced we knew what was best that we couldn't see what you were capable of. I felt my own eyes stinging but kept my voice steady. And now that you know I have money, that I'm successful by any measure, is that why you want to reconnect? No, my mother cried. Lily, please. The money, yes, we need help. But seeing you today, realizing what you've achieved, we're proud of you. We should have been proud of you all along. I sat back down, letting my parents' words settle in the room. Pride. After 7 years of silence, after dismissing everything I'd worked for, they were proud. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice calm but firm. I'm going to help you, but not just with money. This is going to be about rebuilding everything, including our relationship, and it's going to happen on my terms. My father started to speak, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. First, I'm going to have my team do a complete audit of your finances. Everything. No secrets, no hidden debts. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Your team? My mother asked softly. Yes, mother. I have a team of financial advisors who manage my assets. They'll handle this professionally and discreetly. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Sarah, my chief financial advisor. Within moments, she replied confirming she'd start the process immediately. Second, I continued, we're going to talk. Really talk. About everything that happened, everything that was said. No more sweeping things under the rug or pretending the past didn't happen. My parents exchanged nervous glances. The Chen family had never been good at emotional honesty. We were masters at avoiding difficult conversations, letting resentment build until it exploded. And third, I said, standing up, you're going to come see what I've built. Tomorrow, I'm taking you to Neural Dynamics. It's time you understood exactly what your daughter has achieved. The next morning, I picked them up in my Rolls Royce. My mother had made an effort to dress up, wearing one of her old designer suits that now hung loose on her frame. My father looked uncomfortable in a tie that had seen better days. As we drove through the city, heading toward the gleaming towers of the tech district, my mother kept glancing at me. What is it? I finally asked. You seem so different, she said. Confident, in control. I smiled slightly. I always was, mother. You just never saw it because it didn't fit your image of who I should be. We pulled into the private parking garage beneath the Neural Dynamics building, 40 stories of glass and steel that housed over 3,000 employees. As we stepped into the private elevator, my father's eyes widened at the fingerprint scanner. Security is tight, I explained. We develop proprietary technology here. What we're working on is worth billions. The elevator opened directly into my executive suite on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and multiple screens displayed real-time data from our global operations. This is impressive, my father said, turning slowly to take it all in. Sarah was waiting for us, tablet in hand. Ms. Chen, I have the preliminary audit results. I nodded. Thank you, Sarah. What's the damage? She glanced at my parents before continuing. Total outstanding debt is approximately $2.3 million, including the house mortgages, business loans, and various credit lines. Most of it is high interest and overdue. I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. The number was clearly higher than they'd admitted, even to themselves. Options? I asked. We can clear it all immediately if you want, Sarah replied. Or set up a structured payment plan if you prefer to handle it that way. My father's face had gone pale. $2.3 million, he whispered. Lily, we had no idea it had gotten so bad. You didn't want to know, I corrected him. Just like you didn't want to know what I was doing with my life. It was easier to look away. I turned to Sarah. Set up a payment plan. I'll cover it all, but I want it structured properly, and I want the business officially closed. No more throwing good money after bad. After Sarah left, I led my parents into my private conference room. The walls were lined with awards and press coverage, articles about neural dynamics innovations, my patents, our company's impact on various industries. This is what you walked away from, my mother said, reading one of the headlines. When you refused to take over the family business. No, I corrected her. This is what I walked toward. You saw it as walking away because you couldn't imagine anything beyond what you had planned for me. I sat down at the conference table, gesturing for them to join me. Do you know why I succeeded? I asked. Because when you cut me off, when you took away everything I was supposed to depend on, you accidentally gave me the greatest gift of all, freedom. Freedom to fail, to try, to build something without the weight of your expectations. My father's hands were trembling slightly as he clasped them on the table. We thought we were doing what was best for you. Protecting you. The family business, it was supposed to be your security. But it was never what I wanted, I said softly. And you never asked. You just assumed your dreams should be my dreams. And look what your dreams built, my mother said, gesturing at the room around us. While we were clinging to the past, you were creating the future. We spent the next few hours talking, really talking, for the first time in years. They told me about their struggles as the business declined, their fear of losing everything, their regret over pushing me away. I told them about the early days of neural dynamics, the risks I took, the nights I worked until dawn believing in my vision. There's something else you should know, I said finally. I'm not just successful, I'm wealthy beyond anything you could imagine. The company is worth billions, yes, but my personal net worth is over $47 million. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father seemed to age 10 years in an instant, the full weight of their rejection finally hitting him. All this time, he whispered, while we were drowning in debt, too proud to admit our mistakes. Too proud to reach out to your daughter, I finished for him. Yes, but that's the past. What matters now is what we do going forward. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. This is my proposal. I'll clear all your debts through a structured payment plan. The house will be put in a trust. You can live there for the rest of your lives, but it will eventually become a foundation to help young entrepreneurs. The family business will be closed properly, with all employees receiving generous severance packages. They nodded, understanding that this wasn't up for discussion. But, I continued, this isn't just about money. I want us to try being a real family, not the one you tried to force me to be part of, but something new, something honest. That means therapy, both individual and family sessions. It means regular dinners, real conversations, and genuine efforts to understand each other. You don't owe us any of this, my mother said quietly. After how we treated you. No, I don't, I agreed. But I'm not doing it out of obligation. I'm doing it because despite everything, you're my parents. And maybe it's time we all learn how to be a family without expectations or conditions. My father reached across the table and took my hand, the first time he touched me in 7 years. Thank you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Not for the money, but for giving us a chance to make things right. Over the next few months, we began the slow process of rebuilding. The family therapy sessions were difficult. Years of resentment and misunderstanding don't disappear overnight. But gradually, we started to understand each other better. My parents moved into their newly renovated house, now maintained by the trust I'd established. My mother started volunteering at a local youth center, mentoring young girls interested in technology. My father, free from the burden of the failing business, discovered a passion for teaching business classes at a community college. One evening, about 6 months after that first reunion, we sat in their garden. I'd had it restored to its former glory, the roses my mother loved blooming once again. Do you remember, my mother said, sipping her tea, how you used to sit out here with your laptop, working on what you called your projects? We thought you were just playing games, avoiding real work. I smiled. Those projects were the early versions of the AI algorithms that would eventually become neural dynamics core technology. We were so blind, my father added, so caught up in our own vision of success that we couldn't see you were already successful, just in a way we didn't understand. The past is the past, I said, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. What matters is that we're here now, learning to see each other clearly. My phone buzzed. A message from my team about a new breakthrough in our latest project. Looking at the message, then at my parents, I felt a sense of completion. I had succeeded not just in business, but in something far more challenging, forgiving, growing, and building a new kind of relationship with my family. I have some exciting news, I said, putting my phone away. Neural Dynamics is launching a foundation to support young entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. We're calling it the Chen Innovation Fund. My parents' eyes widened. You're using our name? My father asked. Yes, I replied. Because despite everything, you taught me something valuable, the importance of legacy, just not in the way you planned. My mother wiped away tears as my father squeezed her hand. We sat there in the garden, watching the day fade into night, 3 people who had lost their way finding a new path forward together. Sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in the ability to transform pain into purpose, resentment into reconciliation, and broken relationships into something stronger than before. As I drove home that night, I thought about the long journey that had brought us here. From the daughter they rejected to the successful businesswoman who could save them, from a family broken by pride to one slowly healing through honesty and effort. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Thank you for not giving up on us. We love you. I smiled, thinking how far we'd all come. Sometimes the hardest part of success isn't achieving it, it's learning how to share it with the people who once doubted you could succeed at all.